Kata, distinguished guests, speakers, and participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of you. On behalf of the General Council for Islamic Banks and Financial Institutions, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming all of you today to this webinar on talent management dynamics, current practices, challenges, and prospects for the Islamic banking industry. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, talent management is an essential element of organizational performance. Having a well-implemented talent management strategy can empower organizations to attract, develop, and retain the most suitable talent, fostering innovation and stimulating growth. And in recent years, the financial sector experienced heightened competition due to the emergence of innovative business models, which has transformed customer experiences and made it more important than ever for incumbents to raise the bar of their services to maintain business continuity. As competition heightens, implementing business management strategies becomes highly important to attract, develop, and retain a skilled and engaged workforce that allows preserving competitive advantage. In this year's Global Islamic Bankers Survey, we focus specifically on the theme of talent in Islamic banking to investigate the occurrences and challenges faced by Islamic banks attracting, developing, and retaining talent. And so we come together today in this webinar for the launch of the CIBAFI GIBS 2023 report, as well as to engage in insightful discussions with a diverse panel of speakers on the recent trends and developments of talent management in the financial sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I would like to make a couple of announcements. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please do not hesitate to write them in the Q&A sections that appears below the platform. We will try our best to answer all these questions. The webinar will be recorded and posted on our social media platforms in the coming days. So please follow us on our social media accounts to get the updates. And we will appreciate your kind feedback on the organization of this webinar by filling out the evaluation form that you will be directed to after the end of this webinar. Now, without further ado, I have the pleasure to call upon Dr. Abdel General of CIBAFI to deliver his welcoming remarks. Dr. Bilati.
Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you wherever you are. It is a great pleasure to be here again and to welcome you to this CIBAFI webinar for the launch of the Global Islamic Bankers Survey for the current year 2023, with the theme of talent management dynamics, current practices, challenges, and prospects. Before starting, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners for making this publication possible, for supporting us, namely DDCAP and Kuwait International Bank. And I would like to thank gratefully all the speakers and experts that are joining us today for this webinar, and in particular, a very good friend and Professor Azmi, Dato Azmi Omar. Thank you. Before the final launch of the discussion, I would like just perhaps to give a brief overview of the current work program that CIBAFI is undergoing. So for the last perhaps 2 years or 3 years, we have been working and we continue on a number of projects, and direction is on 2 key areas. The first is on sustainability and a number of projects related to it. And we see that the importance of this topic that is gaining globally and the momentum that it is having currently. So the second one is on the digital transformation and its impact on and need on the Islamic banking operations. We are undergoing deep changes and deep impacts on the financial sector. It is very important for the financial sector and for Islamic banks to adapt to these trends and to be early prepared to all these challenges and to take them as opportunities for their growth and resilience. On sustainability front, we have just last year during the same period issued the sustainability guide, CIBAFI sustainability guide, and we are very pleased to see a number of Islamic banks interested or started to the implementation side of this and taking it as a guide for their ESG and sustainability journey. We are continuing on that front and working on capacity building related to it, plus some other tools that will facilitate the implementation of sustainability, namely a tool for the methodology for calculation of the carbon footprints of Islamic banks' portfolios and financing investments. We just had yesterday our meeting of the Sustainability Working Group, which debated, among others, very deep discussions around this. And we will be issuing in the next few weeks the first part of this work as a deep review and of the methodologies that are in existence while preparing for the issuance of the methodology itself in the next few months. In parallel with this, of course, we are working on issues related to climate change and the impact on the financial sector. We will be issuing in the next, maybe by mid of next month, reports and guidelines and guides for the climate change and its impact on the financial sector and Islamic banks in particular in the MENA region and beyond, which is being prepared in cooperation with the United Nations Environment Protection Financing Initiative, UNEP, and the Islamic Development Bank. I mean, some other areas related to this concerns product development process and Maqasid al-Sharia, how to have integration of sustainability and Maqasid al-Sharia. The other parts of the work program that we have is on digital transformation. I mean, we have seen during the COVID-19 pandemic the importance of digitalization and the deep steps that it has taken in the financial sectors, and we were pleased to see Islamic banks taking very important steps towards this process. When we look at these various changes to the financial sector, we always come back to one very core element, which is the challenge, and we just saw with this morning with another webinar on Sukuk, is that one of the issues related to how to implement these new trends is talent. How to find the right talent for this that have sustainability and innovation and leadership practices and behavior. So looking at this, so we thought it is very important to be addressing this issue and having a survey related to this, to talent management and practices within the Islamic banks. We will see the findings of the reports, and you will receive copies of this in the next few weeks, inshallah. I would like, before passing on the floor to Professor Azmi Omar for the keynote speech, to thank all the participants and all the speakers for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wabarakatuh, and good morning or good day to all of you and those who are joining virtually from all over the world. Let me thank CIBAFI for inviting me to speak at this launch of CIBAFI Global Islamic Bankers Survey Report 2023, which is entitled Talent Management Dynamics, Current Practices, Challenges, and Prospects. Indeed, this is a very important topic as we have now moved beyond COVID-19. As all of us are aware, last Friday, the World Health Organization declared the end of COVID-19 global public health emergency. And we have seen also that major economies starting last year have rebound. And not only economies, but we also see financial institutions have rebound. And focusing directly on Islamic banks, I think generally we see improved revenues, profits. And as businesses expanded, Islamic banks have now started to recruit staff again at different levels. But of course, if we look at the importance of this context is that you have senior management, you have the middle level management, you have the entry level, and you have also what is also another important aspect is to have the right talent among the board members. I think that's also very important because board members provide direction to the bank. So when we look at Islamic banks is that all institutions, as we expand or as they expand, they require the right talent, the right individuals with the right skill set to join the bank and expand the bank further, be it in the context in a country or as well as they go abroad beyond their respective countries. So This report, which interestingly, which I got a snippet of the report, says that more than 90% of Islamic banks says attracting, developing, retaining the right talent is very important. So 90% of Islamic banks are saying that. And this is especially so in the case of senior and middle level management. Why? Because they provide direction in terms of where the bank should be going, and they are the one that will execute the policies. And to me, I fully agree with this. You need to have the right talent. And later on, I would talk about what kind of talent and what kind of skills that we need to develop further, and the role of universities in providing that. Apart from the senior and middle level management, I also see an important element which is not really focused, is on having the right talent for board level position. You see, you may have strong management, but if the board is not supportive of the bank, you may not be able to move the bank to the right direction. I'll give you an example. Suppose banks, senior management wants to implement, for example, risk-sharing tracks, for example, for the bank. And if the board, which represents the shareholders, may not be keen, then the bank may not be able to implement that. So therefore, the right talent in the board is very important. For example, we may say that the board members must be equipped with Islamic finance knowledge, among others. Of course, we know that they need to have strong risk management knowledge. Then they have to have the technology knowledge and so on. But it is also very important to have the board members having the right Islamic finance knowledge. For example, in the exposure draft of the IFSB on corporate governance, I think one of the key things that IFSB corporate governance talks about is having the board members to be trained regularly in Islamic finance. So one of the ways to do that is, of course, to make it mandatory, for example, by the regulators, like what we have, the continuous professional development. Regulators make it mandatory for board members to be trained annually on Islamic finance. We know that, for example, Islamic finance is very, I would say, dynamic, and every few periods it changes in terms of issues and so on. So board members must also be trained in this particular aspect. The report also discussed the skill needs in Islamic banking industry. Among others, we see the importance of having the right technical skills in information technology, in cybersecurity, and in high digital literacy, followed by creativity and innovation and leadership. Notwithstanding that, skills in ESG, environmental, social and governance is also rated as very important. What is also interesting is that the recently published World Economic Forum report, which is titled Future of Jobs in 2023, which was launched in this month, in May this month, the report discussed the skills required in 2023. And you see there is a lot of similarities that was reported in CIBAFI Global Banker Survey report with this report. This report talks about skills required for this year include analytical thinking as a core skill. It includes creative thinking, agility, lifelong learning, technological literacy, apart from, of course, ESG knowledge. So you will find that the Future of Jobs report by World Economic Forum and the Global Islamic Banker Survey are almost similar in the context of finding the right skills required for Islamic bankers. So it is, in fact, affirmed, both reports affirms each other. Hence, we see that, in a nutshell, we need to have somebody who is very strong in technical knowledge, digital literacy, for example, cybersecurity, in ESG, and of course, sustainability report that was published by CIBAFI earlier on. Apart from that is, of course, creativity, innovation, and leadership, very important. And leadership, especially at the middle and senior management level. Then what I want to discuss further is, if we look at the report further, we find that one of the key elements in the report, in the Global Islamic Banker Survey, is about the inadequacy of collaboration between industry players and academia for educational and training programs relevant to Islamic banking needs. We do see that in many countries, Malaysia included, there is a lot of issue that needs to be addressed. And one of them is to have to strengthen the collaboration between industry, and university, and of course, training program. So how do you do that? So let me share you what INSEF is a university established by Bank Negara or Central Bank of Malaysia for Islamic finance industry. So the way we do it in order to bridge that gap between industry and universities, that the way we do it, we appoint board members, and as well as in our Senate, people from the industry, from the Islamic finance industry. So in our board, we have a rep from Central Bank. We have reps from the Islamic financial services industry, banking, takaful, from fintech, for example, and from other industry as well in our board and in our Senate position. So they provide input and guidance to us in order to ensure that our curriculum is based on industry needs. Secondly, what we do is we introduce what we call action learning, which means that we train students to be mini consultant and solve problems faced by companies. So company share us their problems, and we then get our students and our staff to work together to provide solutions to the problems faced by companies. For example, in Malaysia, many Islamic banks are giving out zakat for poverty eradication program. But most of them did not study the impact, how successful are those programs. So we come in and do, for example, impact study to see how those zakat payments are being given out for poverty eradication program, whether they are successful, whether they are impactful, as an example. Another example that we do is helping banks or financial institutions to develop products. So we provide the initial analysis, plus working together with the bank to provide product development. So that's one example. The third thing that we do is we appoint professor of practice. And professor of practice are basically individuals who are captains of the industry. So we appoint CEOs of Islamic financial institutions as our professors. So they come and teach in our program. Apart from the CEOs of Islamic financial institutions, we also appoint senior board members of Islamic banks, which means that they are board of directors. They could be chairman or senior board members of Islamic financial institution. They become our professor of practice. And one of the key things of being a professor of practice is that they have to teach, co-teach the program. So they share the subject with one of our professors, for example. So in this way, our students not only get what they call technical knowledge about the subject matter, they also get strategic knowledge from those senior individuals, be it they are captains of the industry or they are senior board members. I think to me, the relationship between industry and university must be close in order to continuously evolve and ensure that Islamic financial institutions are served by universities, and universities provide the right talent for the industry. So collaboration is a must, I would say, between universities and Islamic financial institutions. So if you want to move forward, this is one of the key things that we need to look at and address. So again, thank you very much for inviting me. And I look forward to the launch of the report.
Thank you very much, Professor Amar, for these words and for the insights that you've shared with us, especially in line with the report findings. So ladies and gentlemen, we will now be presenting some of the key findings of the report. The CIBAFI Global Islamic Banker Survey. I'll give you some of the findings of the report. The CIBAFI 2023 report comes after 7 editions of the report, 2023 report. We have been monitoring the perspectives of Islamic banking executives through these reports on their key concerns and risks for the coming years, as well as on the key trends of significant impact for the industry's growth. And in this year's report, we look specifically at the theme of talent management, to look at the dynamics of talent management, the challenges and the prospects in the Islamic banking industry when it comes to that. So the report contains 3 parts. The first 2 parts are permanent parts in the report that look at the CIBAFI Islamic Banking Confidence Index, the Islamic Bank's confidence in the future of the industry, as well as the key risks. Part 2 looks at the key risks that Islamic banks see or foresee for the next years. In the third part, we look at our theme for this year, and that is on talent management in the Islamic banking industry. And to look at this topic, we thought it's very crucial to look at 2 key areas in this regard. One is on the talent landscape in the Islamic banking industry, and so how Islamic banks perceive talent within the industry in terms of availability and the shifting needs. And the second area is on the talent management practices of Islamic banks and how do they manage talent within their institutions. Our report provides very insightful results, covering insights from 103 Islamic banking executives from 30 countries across different regions. I'll give you now some key findings of the report, starting with part 1. In the first part of the report, we look at the main concerns of Islamic banks regarding various issues and challenges that are facing their institutions over the next 1 to 3 years. And the results this year show a very similar outlook as last year in terms of what are the concerns of Islamic banks, although we do see a less scoring this year than the previous year. Information technology and customer attraction, relation, and retention remain, of course, the top in the concerns of Islamic banks, and that is very much understandable given the rapid acceleration that we see in technology and that is shifting customer demands and the expectations. The second part of the report looks specifically at the risks that Islamic banks foresee for the next years. And the results this year also showed a very similar sentiment to what we've seen in previous years, but also to the concerns that the banks have reported. And we see technology-related risks on the top, as well as credit risk returning as a top concerning risk this year, especially with the uncertainties that we're seeing in the global macroeconomic conditions. But a very important thing to note here is the risk related to, such as the pandemics, that does not feature this year in the top risk, which is understandable as the pandemic comes to an end. Islamic banks are less concerned, or they see this as less of a risk for the future. On part 3, which is on the thematic section, which is on the talent management, as I said, we looked into 2 areas. Firstly, the talent landscape in the Islamic banking industry. So we firstly asked banks to what extent they believe talent is available to the industry in their jurisdiction. And the results show actually a very overall hopeful view, although with 2 main views, with some thinking around 45% seeing the talent available to a substantial or very great extent, whereas another 40 looking at it as available to a moderate extent. And we did follow up with another question here to see in what areas they think there is the talent shortage. And the areas that we identified through the responses were a shortage in Sharia, talents in Sharia, financial technology, financial analysis, risk management, as well as innovation and product development. Now, to understand better what could be hindering the availability of talent, we also asked Islamic banks to score a number of factors. Results showed that the top challenges were related, as highlighted by Professor Azmi, to the lack of appropriate educational programs and the lack of awareness on Islamic finance here, with the top being the inadequate collaboration between industry players and academia. We also asked Islamic banks what trends were impacting the talent and skill needs in the Islamic banking industry. And a very common finding of our report was the importance of technology advancements and digitalization, and how is that changing the talent needs in the industry. Now, the last thing that we looked at here in this section was on the specific skills that will be in demand by Islamic banks in the next 3 to 5 years. Islamic banks recognized again the importance of the skills in technology areas, including possessing technical skills in information technology and cybersecurity, as well as digital literacy. And we see here creativity and innovation as a high personal trait that is demanded by Islamic banks in the next 3 to the next section, thematic part, which looks at the practices in Islamic banks. The first thing that we've seen here is that the majority of Islamic banks actually recognize the importance of attracting, developing, and retaining the right talents, with larger banks placing particular emphasis on that a bit more than the smaller banks. We also asked banks to what extent they were implementing a formulated strategy when it comes to talent management. Now, the responses actually show a very positive outlook, with 34% already having a dedicated strategy in place. and 59% are either planning to or are currently developing one. We also asked banks to elaborate on what areas they were prioritizing when it comes to talent management in their institutions. And the two key prioritizations were investing in employee learning and development and building a strong employer brand to attract talent. And we can see that these are relating more to the attraction and development and retention of talent. We do notice, though, a lower prioritization when it comes to the analysis of employee data, so using data and technology for talent management. And that was one of the findings. Next, we did ask banks, Islamic banks, which job levels they were targeting most when it comes to talent management. And in reality, most positions were actually considered, although there was a slight increased focus on managerial positions. Now, one last finding in this section, we asked about how COVID-19 pandemic had an impact on the aspects that are important to attract and retain talents within Islamic banks. And what we've seen is that pay and benefits and well-being ranked top, while workplace flexibility ranked at the bottom. Now, the conclusions of our report, these mainly relate to the third part of our report. So there was a general positive outlook for talent in Islamic banking, although this did differ by region and market development, and this can be further seen in the discussions that will be there in the report. There was a broad recognition of the developments in the industry that are actually causing a shift in the skill sets required. Islamic banks also acknowledge the role of talent management in Islamic banks and its crucial importance for prioritizing it in their strategy. And lastly, that COVID-19 actually prompted a couple of changes in the talent management practices, prioritizing specific aspects to attract and retain top talent. The report at the end offers a couple of recommendations for Islamic banks. Firstly, Islamic banks would need to ensure that talent management strategies remain adaptable to the changing landscape and industry shifts. Secondly, Islamic banks would need to leverage employee data and technology, which will allow them to refine and optimize talent management practices within their institutions. It would be very important for Islamic banks to foster a positive work environment and adhere to labor laws and policies to attract and retain talent. And as we said, education is very important, and it would be very important to develop specialized training and educational programs that address talent shortage areas. Partnerships would be very important with academic institutions and governments to create a supportive ecosystem for the growth of the Islamic bank. And lastly, we believe it's very important to promote cross-border collaboration to align efforts and skills development. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. That's a brief overview of some of the findings of the report. And please note that the full GIBS report will be available on our website very, very soon. And we will be announcing that on our social media platforms in the coming weeks, inshallah. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we will go to our panel discussion of this webinar. And for this, I would like to invite Mr. Rashid Al-Ta'a, our Business Development Manager here at CIBAFI, to moderate the session. So Rashid, the cloud is yours.
Thank you, May. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, distinguished guests and esteemed panelists. So we are here today to discuss the future of talent management in Islamic banking. And as we begin, I would like to start with the following quote from the book, The Future Ready Organization, How Dynamic Capability Management is Reshaping the Modern Workforce. So the quote is, given the journey that talent management is on, we do seem to need new answers to new problems rather than another retrofit of best practices. So with this in mind, we will try through the discussion where we will be having with our distinguished speakers to identify the changes in talent management, the new problems, the challenges, and how to overcome these. So for that, I will be joined by three esteemed speakers and practitioners. First, Dr. Iram Saba, Assistant Professor and Program Director at the Institute of Business Administration, Karachi, in Pakistan, and Sana Haji, Associate Director, Human Capital at CAD in Bahrain, and Mr. Hussein Al-Khaj, GCC Regional Director at DidiCap Limited. So over the years, the concept of performance measurement has been continuously evolving to capture all potential factors that could affect the performance of organizations. For many years, we considered only financial indicators. However, with the change in the market dynamics and the perspectives, other non-financial indicators were considered, such as sustainability, customer satisfaction, innovation level, and others. However, with these evolvements in measuring organization performance, human capital or talent management stayed at the heart of these indicators. So let me start this panel with the idea of the importance of talent management for organization. And I would like to invite Ms. Sana to share with us her thoughts on the importance of talent management in aligning with the overall business strategy, and also to shed light on emerging trends in talent management, and to discuss the role of talent management organization performance.
Well, first, to answer on the importance of management with aligning with the organizational strategy, I would first like to highlight that you cannot achieve this without understanding that the HR has to play an HR business partner role. So there are a few organizations where I worked at, and I can give you an example of a global organization where I worked, where you could see the way HR positions themselves is either make it or break it in order to be aligned with the goal or the organization strategy. So in one of the organizations I worked for, we had different branches. So the practices were similar, the strategy was similar, the culture was similar, but it was very astonishing to see that the way HR positioned themselves was either seen as aligned, they could be aligned with the strategy, or they could just be executing the strategy in a very tactical and operational manner. At the same time, I could highlight when I was working with clients with a lot of Islamic banks, I was working with an institute which played as a partner with the Central Bank of Bahrain to these Islamic banks. And you could see where some CEOs would come without their HR. It means that they're going to shape the strategy, they're going to take what they require from us, and they would see what stakeholders are required to do. And then when they go back, they just give it to HR to execute. While you have other Islamic banks where they would come with the HR, and you could see how they position themselves as a key player in the strategy and not just an executor. That's the first thing to highlight, which is very important. And even the HRBP, which is the HR business partner model, might be an old model. It's been now for 10 years, I believe. But a lot of organizations overlook that and overlook the importance of how much HR has to position themselves. It's really in their hands to do that. And then in terms of the importance, I would say you could have the best business strategy, you could have the best organizational strategy, but who will drive it eventually? It's people who drive the strategy. And for people to drive the strategy, they need to be aligned with it. They need to know what it is. They need to know what their role plays in the bigger strategy. For that, I'd like to share an example of one of the global organizations I worked in, when we felt that as the organization got bigger and as the strategy got bigger, people lost touch in understanding what it is. People started performing their work as more like a day-to-day autopilots, like robots, and they started at a point where they didn't even know why they're doing what they're doing. So we established a program which was more like a culture change, where we make them understand what's the vision and what's the strategy, like as simple as a courier that we had, or as simple as a cleaner that we had to speak the same language as everybody else, had to know what the goal is, what the strategy is. It was very transparent. And through that, you understand that how do you, whatever your role is, whether it's HR, whether it's a junior role or a senior role, how does your role play in the bigger picture or play in the bigger machine of the organization? So that's very important. The same way I'm talking now about the individual role. In the same way, how do we work together as employees to achieve the strategy and to be aligned with the strategy? For that, I have an example where one of the major Islamic banks I was working with on a project as an advisor in Bahrain, they have a merger and acquisition with another Islamic bank. And they did something very beautiful. They realized that we're going to have a new strategy now as we have the merger. But before we even do that, let's find out how we can make the people work together and understand the strategy in order to achieve it. So they understood that their talent management strategy has to first be aligned with the bigger strategy before even rolling it out. So this is something else that's very important to note. And the third one will be the workforce planning. Sometimes what happens is that the business leaders would have their meetings, and especially if there's a strategy change, and they will overlook HR and how much they are needed in order to drive the strategy. So whenever there's a strategy need, whenever there's a direction change, I believe that HR has to be involved and the talent management strategy has to be agile so that we understand as HR professionals, what are the skills required in order to achieve the new strategy? What is the hiring process? What type of talent we need to recruit in order to be aligned with the bigger strategy or even with the change that we have? So that's very, very important. So that's to answer your question on the importance of having a talent management strategy that is aligned with the business goal. I don't know if you want to add anything before I move on to your second question on the trends.
Yes, I really like the idea that you shared regarding the role that HR should play in enabling talent management, especially, I mean, moving from just an executor to be involved in building the strategy. So, and also when it comes to implementing the strategy, considering talents as an asset for the successful implementation of strategy. So I really appreciate that idea. So the second part of the question or the idea that I've shared is regarding the emerging trends in talent management. If you can highlight that point briefly, please.
Yeah, of course. So having worked in HR, and especially having done some research recently with the organization that I worked with previously, we found out that the major talents or the top talents, the first one would be, I think my colleagues will also talk about this later, is talent analytics. So there is so much that you could do as an HR professional with the data that you have. You could actually predict the employee life cycle or the performance cycle from the first day. So it's very important. At the same time, it's also a gap that we're noticing in HR, because you can't just hire a data analytics person or a data scientist for this. You need somebody who understands HR. So that's the first trend, is that to have HR professionals who understand how they could utilize the data and either to have predictions or either to increase the performance of the employees. The other trend is, like your reports mentioned, digital transformation. Of course, it's been there, but there's a twist to it. A lot of the talks that I gave before, or a lot of banks that I spoke to about digital transformation, in the audience, you would always have one or two who would raise their hands and ask, will we be replaced? Does digital transformation in the banking sector mean I'm going to lose my job? Should I be worried? And we always tell them, no, it's the opposite. We need to, as HR, we need to reskill our employees to know how they could utilize the digital transformation activities and the practices that are available to them. As simple as, for example, everybody's talking about ChatGPT. As HR or as talent, it's really easy to use ChatGPT to just do the letters, the employment letters and things that are very redundant and admin work, so that we as HR can focus on the strategic part of how we do our jobs. The third one, again, your report mentioned it as well, was sustainability. In the past, let's say a year and a half, especially when the Central Bank of Bahrain has been instructing the financial sector in Bahrain to be looking after sustainability, to understand what it is. So that's definitely a trend that we see in talent management, which is making people aware of what sustainability is helping them understand that sustainability is not CSR like everybody thinks it is. So really raise awareness and providing talents with the tools and understanding and education of how sustainability plays a role, especially in the Islamic finance sector. The fourth one would be, I would put my psychologist hat on that, which is empathy and well-being. It is very important. And I would say it's a trend because the old school of managements would really manage with the brain and not manage with the heart and not manage with empathy. It was the old school is know your employees need to achieve and that's it. The new way and the new trend, especially after COVID, it has imposed that we really have to look at our employees' well-being. We really have to be empathic towards them. It's no longer enough to just be motivated to perform. You have to be, your well-being has to be really positive in order to be able to perform. So that's very important. The other two trends that I noticed in my time being in HR is employee experience. It starts with even before hiring, like currently being in Mumtala. From
I think
sets
we
the tone
lost
that your role is.
Okay.
This is like it feels. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now I think we lost you
Okay.
for a few seconds.
So the employee experience is very important, especially when it comes to onboarding. The last one would be something that a lot of people have been talking about is remote working, even after COVID. So a lot of employees came back demotivated and thought, if I was able to do this work while I was at home, why can't I just continue doing that? So a lot of organizations have adopted remote working even after COVID. So that's another trend. How do you manage employees remotely? How do you give them this flexibility and so on?
Thank you so much. So let me underline one of the points that you mentioned. So if we are changing the way we evaluate or measure the performance of organizations, so I think we need also to rethink the way we measure the performance of the employees. And I will take the point related to technology because it will be the next point that we will discuss with Mr. Hussein, and it is related to my question to him. So we are noticing that more discussions are conducted around the future of work and the potential of automation, artificial intelligence to transform the way we are working and also the workforce. So my question to Mr. Hussein, taking into consideration these elements, so how do you think technology, AI, digital platforms can be utilized in the context of talent acquisition, development, and retention in Islamic banking? Please, in 7 minutes, Mr. Hussein.
First of all, I want to, on behalf of DDCAP, I want to thank CIBAFI and also I'm pleased to be part of this distinguished panels. So first, let's discuss the talent acquisition. Artificial intelligence-driven tools such as application tracking system, intelligence recruitment platforms can help streamline the recruitment process by automating repetitive tasks. So what is happening is that in many institutions, many banks, having these sort of the tools, platforms can streamline and can help HR. As Sana, she mentioned that, the HR needs to be, staff needs to be involved in recruiting and involved to be part of the strategies that the CEOs and the board are taking. So I believe these sort of platforms help the institutions in terms of looking into right candidates. In fact, I just share my experience in past when I set up a bank in Abu Dhabi, which was a subsidiary of NBAD. We've started from the beginning, and we wanted to hire the key management for the bank. We had to go to basically the recruiting agencies, headhunters, and to identify the key people for the management. But nowadays, I think things have evolved. We have more tools where we can identify ourselves. So this is very important that the people who are working in HR, they have to understand the business requirements of each institution. It's like, for example, IT department. If an IT system for our core banking system It is the IT personnel, the chief operating for the IT, they have involved the employees in selecting the right system for the bank. They have to see what are the requirements for the future growth of the bank, launching different products. So it should not be just haphazardly selecting a system. It needs to be carefully developed, carefully selected, because you are creating a cost for the bank. And you have to do it at the very initially, you have to select the right IT system for the bank. Similarly for the HR, that is very important. In terms of talent development, of course, digital learning platforms and virtual training programs have become indispensable. These Islamic banks can provide personalized learning experience tailored to each employee needs, accelerating their professional growth, increasing their value to the organization. This can be particularly beneficial in the fast evolving world of Islamic finance, where continuous learning and developments are critical to staying ahead. So we have many institutions, and pandemic was good. Unfortunately, it was unfortunate, but it was also a good experience for all the industry, where we had business were conducted as usual, and some of the banks were not ready. As you were not ready, you have to have contingency plans. If something happens, for example, you can't go to the work, how do you serve your clients? So this was a great example during pandemic, where we had in our company as a DDCAP, business was as usual. We were serving our clients. We had all our meetings conducted through a team. All the reports were there. So we didn't feel any change, in fact. A prime example for commitments to development is the increasing number of banks sending their employees stuff to renowned institutions. In the beginning, the Professor Dr. mentioned his experience in Malaysia about some organization, universities. Of course, in Bahrain, as everybody know, we have BIBF, which is basically provides very good training courses in Islamic banking and in many areas. And it is, of course, something sponsored and by Central Bank of Bahrain, and all the CEOs of the banks, from conventional banks as well as from the Islamic institutions, they are representing on the board of BIBF, which gives a very good inside strategy. And we've seen this, many certificates are being developed or courses launched for the staff. We have many banks in Bahrain, in fact, in all the banks of Bahrain, they send their staff, beginning to different courses. But one thing which is very important when it comes to Islamic banking, I was part of ABC Islamic Bank in 1995 when I joined the bank. It was a division of a conventional subsidiary of ABC Bank. So we worked on converting the Islamic division into a full-fledged Islamic bank. Today it's called ABC Islamic Bank, which is a subsidiary of ABC Bank. The thing is that I want to share is that we have been as a staff at the bank, at the division, we were involved in all the Sharia meetings. Whenever we had structured products, financing products, we were involved in the meetings. And this was encouraged by Sharia, because Islamic banking is different than the conventional. You need to have Sharia awareness, you need to have governance awareness, compliance to Sharia rules. Of course, you have IUFI standards. So it is not like straightforward, plain vanilla products that off-shelf you take a term sheet for financing. And no, you have to adhere to all the principles of Sharia compliance. And that was a very good learning curve for us, involvement. But nowadays, unfortunately, as we move towards more growth in Islamic banks became more bigger. We are seeing more layers in the banks. For example, you have a Sharia board, then you have Sharia division. So staff are not directly interacting with Sharia board. So they have to work through the Sharia division. And the person who is taking, for example, your case or your product, that's investment or financing product, and conveying to the Sharia board may not have the full knowledge. So it is important that the Sharia divisions adhere or train to understand the products. But this is what I personally advise that the practitioners, the staff of the banks should also given opportunities to present their case to the Sharia board, because they know a better understanding of their products, and they can better explain to the Sharia board, and it will make it easier for the Sharia scholars to understand their case and whether to approve or to give them guidance, enhance their product. And I personally have never found that the Sharia scholars, they are obstacles. In fact, if you give them the right information, right case, they will always approve your case or products, or give you guidance. The other thing is that I want to just touch base is the talent retention. Digital platforms can play vital roles in fostering employees' engagement and nurturing culture innovations. By leveraging digital communication tools, performance management system, and collaboration platforms, Islamic banks can create more connected and agile work environment, making it easier for employees to contribute to the organization's goals and feel greater sense of belonging. For instance, using tools, you can share different, like for example, teams. You can share information with different employees, create awareness, etc. Now, if we want to touch base on the impact of market dynamics on talent management, in this area, and in the era of increased basically merger and acquisition, Islamic banks must be prepared to integrate diverse workforce and navigate the challenge that comes with it. This requires strong talent management strategies to ensure smooth transitions and maintenance employees the morale during the times of changes. For example, when banks merge, we have to be careful to plan workforce integration, address potential culture clashes, and align the talent strategy with the new organization goals. In fact, if we want to touch base on this, we have in the market, we've seen a number of mergers and acquisitions or mergers. If we take, for example, in UAE, we have a bank like ADCB acquired Al Hilal Bank. So it was a conventional bank acquired Islamic bank. In Bahrain, for example, we have NBB recently, or 3-4 years ago, they acquired Bahrain Islamic Bank. So both banks, they remain separate. But we have also when banks, conventional banks, for example, or Islamic banks, because Islamic banking, you need to grow your business. So one of the ways is to acquire conventional banks. Now, the recent case that we have in the market, of course, which is KFH is acquiring AUB in Bahrain. So this is being the process takes like 18 months or to 3 years. So lots of challenges for institutions, how to convert their different books into Sharia compliant structures. The other challenge is how to, of course, if we are talking now about the staff or talent, how to train the staff who are not, let's say, equipped or have the Sharia compliant knowledge in a very fast manner to retain them. So these are big challenges happening, and these trends will continue in the future because banks will always going, or shareholders will always looking for opportunities to grow their business. And of course, one important thing is, as we've touched base, is the corporate governance is very important, that institutions should maintain this and drill down to all the staff to adhere to Sharia compliant and to encourage the retention of their staff and to enhance their ability, etc. One last thing that I will touch is that in past, when we used to do on the treasury side, when we used to do Murabaha commodity, for example, this was a very complex structure because we have to send fax to the broker, get the offer, acceptance, all the documentation. Now we have platforms like, in DDCAP, we have Ethos platform. It is very easy. Everything is done through digital without any manual intervention. You reduce significantly or eliminate any operational risk. And more than that, you can keep the information of transactions for 7-10 years as it is required. So I
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Yeah, thank you. So let me just take one point of the number of insights that you shared with us, just to highlight that, and this point is related to training and professional empowerment. So just to highlight that CIBAFI is given an importance to this, and we, in addition to like just the traditional training programs that perhaps all organizations have, we do have some training program. We give importance to some trends that we see that can impact the growth and the future of the industry, and we try to stay ahead and provide the necessary training to the market. So when we talk about market dynamics and how they impact talent management businesses, Islamic finance industry is not excluded. So the talent management is considered a crucial component for the success of Islamic banking. And it is essential, as I mentioned, to stay ahead of emerging trends and utilize new trends like technology and digital platforms, and also to consider cultural and regulatory factors. So I would like to invite Dr. Aram to, and I wish to hear your thoughts about these points and what particularities Islamic finance industry must take into consideration when dealing with the topic of talent management. Dr. Aram, the cloud is yours.
Alaikum, and welcome to all the panelists and also the participants. Firstly, thank you so much, CIBAFI, for inviting us today to share our thoughts and launching the report. The question you asked specifically regarding what needs to be done by the Islamic financial institution when you talk about the talent management, let me just briefly share what we have done in Pakistan. So Pakistan is the Muslim country with the 230 million population in the country. And what the regulatory authority have done in order to ensure that we have the required talent for Islamic finance industry in Pakistan, the central bank established 3 centers for excellence in Islamic finance in 3 different academic institutions of Pakistan. Now, this is a very good step because this activity was done 8 years back. And now being based in the financial hub of the country, that is Karachi, where majority of the financial institutions have their headquarters. So we have this Center for Excellence in Islamic Finance in the academic institution where I am based right now. And we have trained more than 6,000 professionals. We have provided them different trainings, be it the board of directors, be it the senior management of the financial institution or middle level management or the new inductee in the bank. Now, let me explain about the landscape of Islamic finance in Pakistan. Then I will be in a better position to talk about the talent management in the country. So we have 6 full-fledged Islamic banks in Pakistan. One recently got converted, Faisal Bank. Now they are Faisal Bank Islami because they are 100% converted to Islamic Bank. So which makes the number 6 in total Islamic banking full-fledged institution. Apart from that, we have 17 windows. And recently we have banks who are basically sharing about their conversion plan. Now, when you talk about this landscape of Islamic finance, this shows that the industry is growing rapidly. Banks are having profit and there is a demand. So basically, the demand is there. When you talk about Islamic financial, you see experts. So the banking sector, the non-banking sector, be it the Islamic mutual fund, all the other institutions are coming up in the market and they're asking us to provide them the trained human resource. So what we are doing for the trained human resource, because the demand is there, we have started these centers where we are giving trainings to the existing employees of the financial institution. And at the same time, the young generation, they want to have their training as well. So for that, we have launched MS programs. I'm very happy that you invited Professor Dr. Azmi Umar, who is the president of INSEF, because I did my PhD from there as well. So what happened is that we get training from all over the world because this is a global, important topic right now, Islamic finance. So when we came back in our own country, we started to develop the same way, MS program where the young generation can come and we can give them the choice. Either you want to learn the general financial concepts or you want to focus primarily on Islamic finance. Our very respected panelist, Mr. Hussain, mentioned about the IOFI standard, mentioned about that we have to give them Sharia as well as finance knowledge. So whoever is coming to Islamic finance, anybody by choice coming to this industry, especially it is growing, they need to understand what is Sharia. They need to understand what is finance. Somebody who is coming from Sharia, for example, scholars, muftis, and if they don't understand what is meant by financial transactions, say, for example, the annual statements, the new products, for example, the Tawarruk, commodity murabha, how the accounting treatment, what we are going to do for that, Basel requirement, it is very important for them to understand. So as an institution, IBA, Institute of Business Administration, we have two responsibilities. First one, to give the experts to the industry, to give them a trained human resource, which we are doing by having our MS program. And at the same time, people who are in the industry, you see, we have to update our knowledge after every 2 to 3 years, right? So we provide them certification. Now, the most important point, Brother Rashid, that you asked is what Islamic financial institutions should do. You have to engage your employees, because if you don't engage, Sister Sana mentioned about the activities she started when she was working in HR. So you need to engage your employee. The current people, the young generation, the millennials, if you don't engage them, believe me, they are not going to work with you. Honestly, if you don't make your interview process, smooth for them, easy for them to understand, if you don't tell them that, you see, this is the value addition we are doing, this is what you are supposed to do. If you don't take them on board, share information, the young generation will not stay there for long. This is why we have this employee turnover. So you can see the institution that people quickly check 2 to 3 months. If they are seeing that they are not adding any value, I'm talking about the millennials, by the way, so they will change and you will get a CV. So they have spent like 2 years in 4 organizations, whereas the past trend was you spent 20 years in one institution. Now things are changing. So Islamic financial institutions need to ensure that when they take an employee on board, starting from then till the end, the employee should have a wonderful experience. I need to talk about the triple bottom line. So planet, people, and profit. These 3 things we want to work on. And your own employees are your first customer. They are the ones who are going to talk about, yes, this institution is doing very well. You can see that the banks are collapsing just because the employee were not satisfied. So employee said something, and I don't want to name the banks, but you know that people lost their trust on the financial institution. So now the talent management, I'm very happy the role CIBAFI is playing, especially with this new survey results that Sister May shared earlier. Now, this is what the importance of talent management. Dr. Azmi mentioned about World Economic Forum report as well. If you combine the results of all these reports, the most important thing is recruiter. And recruiter are looking for the right candidate for the right job at the right place. And how we are going to do it, we have to take care of the technology in that. Because now people, they don't like to fill the form, the hard copy. It's a very old story. Now everything is on basically online. So you need to engage your employee. So last 2 things, the role of academia and regulatory authority and financial institution, they all have to come together in order to focus on the development of the talent. Only academic institutions cannot do that. I really like the statement given by Dr. Azmi, that is basically the collaboration between the academic institutions and financial institutions. Because academic institutions are the ones who are going to give you the human resource. Here, the talent management is all about human resource. So the institutions have to come forward and talk to the academicians that what are the trends changing in their own industries, so that the academic institutions and academicians, they also start working in the classroom learning and out of the classroom learning for their students. And the financial industry get the up-to-date and the trained human resource. Again, another important point that I want to share, I believe that the same thing is happening in Bahrain and other countries as well. Pakistan gave license to 5 digital financial institutions. So on one hand, we have to take care of the, you see, face-to-face physical banking transaction or financial activities. But on the other hand, we have to focus on digital banking, digital financial institution, financial inclusion. So we have to train human resource in all the other connected areas as well. And we can't ignore artificial intelligence. Being in academic institution, we don't allow students to use basically chat box. So why is chat GPT or you can say that Quillbot, all the other artificial intelligence tools, but we want them to be aware about it. It's not that we don't want them to work in silos. We want them to have the up-to-date knowledge, what is happening in the industry, in the academic institution with the artificial intelligence, in the tech industry, but they should be good thinkers. They should be solution providers. They should have that strategic mindset, how they can change the problems and provide the opportunities to the industry. So this is my point that I wanted to share with the audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aaron, for sharing these wonderful points. I would just again emphasize on 2 points that you've shared. First is the gap that we have when we talk about, for example, Sharia scholars and practitioners and these theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge. Perhaps this is some of the challenges or one of the challenges that there is impacting the development of the industry. And you have given a number of elements that could help in overcoming this challenge, such as training and professional empowerment. The other points that I really liked is when we talk about the experience of the employees, we always highlight customer experience, but not employees' experience. So we should go beyond just customer experience, and we think about stakeholders' experience, including the employees. Before giving the chance to all the panelists in 2 minutes to share their perspective on the future of talent management and the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead, I would like to summarize in 3 points what has been shared by all the panelists. The first point is that the foundation of any organization lies in its employees, so making talent management a crucial focus for businesses. The second point is to stay ahead and improve efficiency. Many companies are turning to new trends such as AI-powered technologies for workforce management. And the third point is the asset required to leveraging the opportunities of key growth drivers for Islamic finance is talent management, and training and professional empowerment should be a focus of all Islamic financial institutions. I would like to invite the distinguished speakers, starting with perhaps Mr. Hussein, just to share in 2 minutes your perspective about the future of talent management.
Yes, certainly. I mean, looking ahead, I believe that the future talent management in Islamic banking is bright. As the industry continues to grow and innovate, there will be increasing demand for top talent with diverse skill set and expertise. To capitalize on this, supporting Islamic banks must embrace digital transformation and foster culture of continuous learning and development. Of course, however, there are challenges to overcome as well. The competition for talent will intensify, requiring some banks to differentiate themselves as employer of choice. Additionally, the rapid pace of technological changes will necessitate constant adaptation and innovation in talent management strategies. Banks must stay vigilant in monitoring the latest trends and developments, ensuring their workforce is prepared for the future. And the final thing is, of course, the training. Institutions must, of course, foster a strong partnership with educational institutions for developing the skills of their staff to keep a pace for the fast-growing market movement changes in the industry at all levels, from the regulatory, from central banks to accounting standards, etc. So it's very important that current issues are kept alive, and we should always make sure that our staff are well trained and well educated. Not just in terms of education, we have to make sure that they are they are well trained in terms of getting the right experience. When going back to the basic, when you identify the skills, we need to make sure that we put the right stuff at the right skill, the right place. And so these are the basic, the ABC of recruiting individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Dr. Aaron, if you want to share.
We need to hire people who understand the vision, mission, values, and strategy of the institution. And all these four things are basically, again, formulated by the board of directors and the management and the stakeholders. So firstly, we need to focus having people who are having the same energy, having the same understanding of the vision and mission that the bank or the financial institution is planning to hold or having on board. Secondly, when you have candidates or people and they join your institution, make sure you engage them. Because I can tell you, if you don't engage your own employees, then this will bring disaster, not only for the institution, but also for the employees as well. So employee engagement is a very important term. When you engage employee, then whatever the trend is, doesn't matter. For example, right now we are focusing on technology so very much. We are having, artificial intelligence, digitalization, fintech. We have all these things right now, and everybody is talking about that. We have digital banking and things like that. But maybe after 5 years, there is another trend. But if you are engaging your employees, so it doesn't matter what trend is there. It's just that you are already well equipped so that your employees are satisfied, because they are, again, I repeat, your first customer. So talent management, basically having the right people, as Mr. Hussain also mentioned, at right place. And we ignored the role of the expenditure on the training and development. If you see in the financial institution, the smallest budget will go to these departments, learning and development, training and development. So financial institution have to, spend so that even their Sharia scholar, even their new inductee, they all can have the up-to-date knowledge in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aaron. Ms. Sana, please, over to you.
I agree with my co-panelists, and there's something that Mr. Hussain said. The workforce has to be prepared for the future. I agree of that, and I also think that the employer has to be prepared for the workforce of the future. So Dr. Adams mentioned earlier about the millennials. If we go a step younger, if we have the Gen Z, when you hire them, they're no longer looking for financial incentives. That's no longer enough to attract talent. We have to be aware and ready as employers to offer them the flexibility that they're looking for. Otherwise, we're losing a lot of good young talent to entrepreneurships and gig workforce, and we're losing such talents that can drive the organizations further.
Thank you. So before concluding, I would just pick some questions from the audience, and I can see that we have answered a number of these questions, but one of the most important one, because we talked about a number of initiatives to improve talent management strategy, but we did not perhaps highlight enough the fact of measuring the success of talent management initiatives. The question says that how can banks measure the success of their talent management initiatives, and what matrices do they use to track progress and identify areas for improvement? So Dr. Iram, if you can share some ideas on this.
Okay, so there are several ways, but one of the simplest, very easy and very quick is basically you see employee turnover. Very easy way. If the people are not staying in that particular organization, you see nowadays 2 to 3 years is considered normal, which is fine. So if somebody is staying in your institution, in financial institution for 2 to 3 years, that is acceptable in the industry. But if they are staying less than a year, it means that there is a problem, be it infrastructure, be it their supervisor, or any other organization policies. There are certain reasons to that. We need to see that the employee turnover, and also the importance of exit interview. So during the exit interview, you can get how seriously organizations are conducting these activities. That is another point. But normally the international MNCs and all these institutions, they take exit interview very seriously, that why the candidate is leaving. These are very simplest way in order to understand the success of your talent management, right? And the pool of applicants that you are receiving, this is also another way. So on top of my head right now, I can just think about these three.
Thank you. Ms. Sana, do you want to add something on this?
I would add to that the employee engagement survey. You could get a lot of valuable data there about how you're doing. And there's something that we did in one of the organizations I worked for is on top of the employee engagement survey, we did an HR business partner survey. And that was linked to our performance and bonuses. So every year we would give our internal customers a survey that just says how is our strategy going, how are we doing. So that was valuable data.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Hussein, if you wish to add something in this.
Yeah, I agree with Raram and about what they mentioned. One of the key important thing is that for staff, in many institutions, we hire staff. We don't put objectives for them, training program for them. We just put them on job immediately. It is very important institutions to, in order to identify the key staff, they have to really look after them. They have to retain them. How do they retain them? Is by encouraging them in terms of sending them to professional courses, giving them the right training. As the managers and even as HR, they have to constantly sit with these key people, because you don't want to lose your talent staff, because very easy, because the first thing that the staff they move, you will lose the high caliber of staff, because they will be easily attracted by other institutions. So you have to really take care of those staff in terms of motivating them, not just in terms of increasing their salaries, no, even in terms of giving them more responsibilities, to become involving them in the strategic initiatives of the bank, so they can feel that they are part of the bank. It's not that they are just working, coming from 8 to 5, 8 to 4, and then leaving. These are very important elements for keeping your staff.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein. Thank you, Dr. Aram and Ms. Sana. So just to close this panel and then back to my colleague May. So just to summarize, so our distinguished panelists highlighted the opportunities and the challenges that lie ahead for talent management in Islamic banking. And they also shared their perspective on how to prepare for the future. We heard about the importance of staying ahead of emerging trends such as technology, AI, and to embrace these technologies and to consider them as enablers, as well as the need to consider cultural and regulatory factors. In conclusion, talent management is important for the success of Islamic banking and any other organizations in all other sectors, and it is essential to stay informed and agile in the face of evolving trends and challenges. I would like to thank our distinguished panelists for sharing their valuable insights and experiences, and I hope that this discussion has been informative and engaging for all our attendees.
We would like to thank the audience and participants for their attention and for their active participation.